Have you ever stared at your phone wondering why they haven't texted back yet? Or replayed a conversation over and over in your head, trying to decode what they really meant? Maybe you've imagined worst-case scenarios that never even happened. Maybe you've convinced yourself someone is losing interest without having any real evidence at all. Relationship overthinking is exhausting. It steals your peace, it creates anxiety where there might have been calm, and sometimes it damages the very relationship you're trying so hard to protect. But here's something fascinating. Long before modern psychology existed, ancient philosophers were already warning people about this exact problem. They understood something timeless, that the human mind often creates suffering through fear, imagination, and attachment. And today, their wisdom may be more relevant than ever. More than 2,000 years ago, Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about how true that is in relationships. Most of the pain people experience isn't caused by what actually happened. It comes from what the mind imagines is happening. A short text becomes, "They must be upset with me." A delayed response becomes, "They're losing interest." A small change in tone, "Something is so wrong." The Stoics believe that the mind has a tendency to turn uncertainty into fear. And the more emotionally attached we become to those thoughts, the more we suffer. That's why Epictetus taught one of the most important ideas in Stoic philosophy. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. That single idea can completely change the way you experience relationships. Because when people overthink relationships, they usually obsess over things outside their control. They worry about what another person is thinking, how someone feels, whether the relationship will last, or what might happen in the future. But according to the Stoics, peace comes when you stop trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. You can control your honesty, your communication, your patience, your actions. But you cannot control another person's mind. And trying to do so creates anxiety that never ends. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, struggled with the human mind. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That quote matters because overthinking often comes with confusing thoughts with reality. The mind creates stories. Sometimes someone is simply busy, but the anxious mind creates an entire narrative of rejection. Ancient philosophers understood that the first emotional reaction was not always the truth. And that's incredibly important in relationships. Because when fear takes over, people stop seeing clearly. They begin searching for hidden meanings in everything. They assume the worst. They emotionally react before they understand the situation. And often, they create the conflict they feared in the first place. But ancient philosophy didn't teach emotional coldness. The Stoics were not saying, "Never love anyone." Instead, they warned against becoming emotionally dependent on things you cannot control. There's a big difference. Love is healthy. Attachment without inner stability is dangerous. When your entire emotional world depends on another person's behavior, every uncertainty feels terrifying. That's why many ancient thinkers emphasized inner calm. In Taoism, the philosopher Laozi taught, "Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner." That doesn't mean ignoring others completely. It means you cannot build peace on constant approval and reassurance. Because if your happiness depends entirely on another person validating you, your mind will never rest. Overthinking thrives on uncertainty. But ancient philosophers believed uncertainty is part of life itself. You cannot remove all risk from love. You cannot guarantee permanence. You cannot force certainty into human relationships. And strangely enough, accepting that reality often creates more peace than resisting it. the Stoics practiced something they called acceptance. Not giving up, not becoming passive, but accepting reality as it is instead of fighting endlessly against what cannot be controlled. That mindset changes relationships completely. Instead of obsessing over every possible outcome, you become more present. You listen better. You communicate more clearly. You stop reacting to imaginary scenarios. And perhaps most importantly, you stop abandoning your own peace of mind. Because ancient philosophy repeatedly teaches one powerful truth. A calm mind sees reality more clearly than an anxious one. When people overthink relationships, they often believe that they are protecting themselves. But in reality, they are feeding fear, and fear distorts everything. That's why the Stoics trained themselves to pause before reacting emotionally, to question their assumptions, to separate fact from imagination. And maybe that's the real lesson ancient philosophy offers us today. Not that relationships should be emotionless, but that love becomes healthier when it is guided by clarity instead of fear. So the next time your mind starts spiraling, remember the words of Seneca. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And most importantly, do not punish the present for what the future has not done. That may be one of the most important relationship lessons ever written. Because love cannot survive where fear interprets everything. But peace becomes possible when you stop allowing imagination to overpower reality. And sometimes the moment you stop assuming the worst is the moment you finally begin to experience the relationship clearly. Let's do an experiment. After all, philosophy is just a bunch of words if you don't put it into practical use. Choose one thing you're anxious about in your relationship. Doesn't have to be a big thing, just something to use for this experiment. And go ahead and pause the video if you need some time. Please just choose a small one to start. Okay, let's get started. Now that you have a relationship anxiety firmly in your mind, I'm really sorry about that. Let's ask a few questions. What imagined scenario are you holding right now that is not supported by known facts? What do you actually know to be true right now? What do you fear most in the relationship? What would happen if you stopped overthinking and just experienced the relationship in the present? Are you prepared to not punish the present for what the future has not done? And most importantly, are you prepared to stop constantly monitoring your relationship? So here's the experiment. For the next week, answer each of these questions once every day. The answers may or may not change. Don't worry about that. Just answer them truthfully at the time. And consider reviewing this video halfway through the week to see if you've gained any new insights. Hopefully this will bring you some clarity and you can begin to move forward. Philosophy thrives in conversation and argument. Please add your comments below. If you want to go deeper, make sure to check the description and pinned comment for resources that will help you apply these ideas to your daily life and your relationship. And if you found this helpful, I'd so appreciate it if you would give a gentle tap to the like and subscribe buttons. Remember, in all things and at all times, be a philosopher.